Baby boomers, get excited. This is the podcast that's for you, by you. The Boomer Business Owner is the only podcast dedicated to helping baby boomers successfully start and run an online business. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful online entrepreneurs, then grab a coffee and listen into your host, Charlie Posnick.
Welcome to the Boomer Business Owner. My guest today is Greg Crabtree. Greg is a baby boomer, speaker, author, entrepreneur, and financial expert. In 2011, he published Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, a book that helps entrepreneurs run a profitable, cash flow generating, wealth building business. Hey, Greg, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate you having me.
In your own words, Greg, could you please maybe describe to our listeners what you do?
Well, we have a consulting firm that started off as a CPA firm, but we kind of see ourselves more as profitability consultants that helps entrepreneurs run a profitable business. And then for about 70-80% of those businesses, we handle the tax strategy of filing tax returns and planning for the tax outcomes of that profitability. And then the last piece of that is then once you've generated that after-tax wealth, what's the strategy of the best deploying that? Do you deploy it back into the business to continue to grow it and produce a great return on investment, or is it something that you harvest the wealth off of that and diversify into other things? And so it's been an interesting business that has taken us to clients all over the country. So whereas about 11 years ago, all of our clients were in Huntsville, Alabama, where our office is located, and now about 65% of our revenue comes from all over the country and some international work as well.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. It's Alabama is a great place to be if you like college football because out of the last 5 national championship games, the team playing in the national championship has been from the state of Alabama. So
excellent. Yeah. Didn't even think about that. Didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, when you is your quintessential client an existing entrepreneur, or do you also work with people who come to you and say, Greg, I've been working for somebody else, this big corporation for a while. I have some money. I want to do something entrepreneurial. Can you help me out? Do you work with people in the latter category?
Absolutely. We structured our services to where we feel like we can help anybody from the beginning stage, all the way into as large of a business as you want. I mean, I would say largely our sweet spot is that $1 million to $10 million business owner when they come to us. But, we've priced our services in a way that, we can be efficient and cost effective even with a startup business because we believe in models. We believe that there's a practical way of looking at any business and helping an entrepreneur that either wants to start a business or grow an existing business or fix an existing business. Hey, it's all about looking at the simple model, and here's the handful of things that you need to know so that I'm not trying to change 1,000 things. I'm just changing 4 or 5 things that really drives that. And one of the things that we kind of hit upon in our research of our client data was coming up with a common language, as you would say, to put data all in one format regardless of industry so that entrepreneurs can begin to have discussions in business groups with fellow entrepreneurs that look at their data the same way so that you can learn from each other. And one of the things that we strongly encourage is being open and sharing your data with other entrepreneurs, that maybe not be competitors, but you can learn from every business. There's so many good examples out there to pick from.
Is there any difference in a client who comes to you and they have a dry cleaner, they have a car wash, some kind of maybe more brick and mortar business versus somebody who comes to you and says, Greg, I am an online entrepreneur. I sell widgets via Amazon and I do $1 million a year worth of business. Is there any difference there?
Absolutely. But the difference is actually just a trade-off. And so think of it like this. So use McDonald's. So McDonald's has a fixed facility that you drive by. What most people don't realize, though, is that facility is as much of a marketing element as it is a facility to deliver the product. And what online retailers have had to come to the harsh reality of is what you may not pay in facilities being an online retailer, you've got to make up in marketing spend. And actually, one of the things that we believe in is I would say 9 out of 10 businesses are not spending enough money on marketing, and those 1 out of 10 that are spending enough money on marketing are probably not spending it very effectively. And so if you can really focus on the understanding of, and that online business, it's the art of driving, customers to you, because you can have the greatest thing in the world, but all you have to do is just do a search on the internet and you've got a lot of competitors. And there are ways that you have to understand to be able to drive business, and whether that's human effort using social media that doesn't cost you anything, or paid placement, those types of things. Those are all trade-offs in the model. And so it's really interesting that from what we have seen is there's this natural movement of dropping of gross margin for whatever is sold over the internet. And then I've got to make up for it with good marketing efficiency to turn enough business to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, that's very well put. It's the one thing I wrestle with on a day-to-day basis. I believe the work I'm doing is really good. I believe I'm providing good quality and, more often than not, free information to people. And it's about getting people's attention, because, yes, I don't have a store on the corner of Main Street and the busiest highway to bring my business to people's attention. Mm-hmm. How about your background, Greg? What were you doing that kind of got you to the point where you are today with your business?
Well, I could go all the way back and say that growing up on a chicken farm, gathering 7,000 to 8,000 eggs a day would drive anybody to find something different to do for a living. And so I learned that as a kid. But, when I first started in public accounting, I just saw such horrible efficiency of use of data. I mean, we were we would spend a lot of time and cost our clients a lot of money doing work that, you'd hand them a nice bound audit report and they say, "Thank you very much. Can you send a copy to the bank?" And they take our copy and stick it in the drawer. And it's like, I just worked for a couple of months on this, and they're not even using it to run their business. And then I was fortunate enough to get hired by a client of ours in the banking business to be their controller, and that was really where I developed most of my management data philosophies, because a bank is actually a relatively simple entity, but it just has massive amounts of data, and so you learn how to take data, control it, make sense of it, and turn it real quick, and so it kind of became a thing that I grasped on early, that what we want people to do in the entrepreneurial space is to have real-time data. And I was closing the books of a $140 million bank by noon of the first day of the month. And this was back in, when PCs just first came on the scene. And so it was a process that you look at and say, how do I solve that bottleneck? Because ultimately, most entrepreneurs are very gut-oriented. They have a desire of what they want to do, but they struggle with data because they don't invest into the resources to create data on a real-time basis. But if you do invest, you don't want it to cost you so much that the cost of doing it real time, is not worth what it produces. And so what we've strove for over the years is to find ways to create a simple data environment, that uses, inexpensive people to produce good enough data. And you talk about good enough data to a bunch of accountants, and they all start to shake and cringe. But the reality is, the basic entrepreneur just needs good enough data, and plus that real time data becomes a great deterrent for fraud and theft as well. But once you get that real time data, then how do you make sense of it? Because you can have so much data, you're blind to it, and that's where, over a series of research projects where we took our own clients' data and started studying it and saying, well, why are these people successful and these people are not? And they're in the same industry. We kind of came upon this simple one way of seeing the data. And that just kind of led to, okay, well, what's the other piece to the puzzle? What's the other piece to the puzzle? And as we built that became ultimately the output of my book into 2011, the Simple Numbers book, as we refer to it. And it's been amazing. If you go look, the first 10 people that wrote a review on Amazon were people I knew. Everybody after that, I have no idea who those people are. And you get some really passionate responses of people going, where have you been all my life? And it's a book on accounting, and it's, of course we say that, but it's really a book about how to run a profitable business. And I think my profession has done a horrible job of, we've become too tax focused and not profit focused.
So are you, if I'm a client of yours, are you giving me this data in some kind of online portal or somewhere I can get this? Are you sending me a report via fax? How are you getting my data to me?
Up until a month ago, the way we were approaching it is we would either have you send us your QuickBooks file or your data in a spreadsheet format, or we grab a copy of your file, pull it ourselves, drop it in a custom model. And we saw an opportunity to create a template that said, hey, if you're on the QuickBooks desktop, that was the largest installed base of accounting systems for entrepreneurs. Said, let's start there and prove that this works. And so what we did was we created a product called our Simple Numbers Profit Tool. And so essentially it's an add-in to QuickBooks. It'll grab the data and it'll essentially take whatever massive amount of accounts you've got and have you bucket them into the 7 or 8 buckets that we look at, on the P&L. And you can now essentially produce your data in our format natively yourself, and you can toggle between a P&L by month, a rolling 3, rolling 6, and rolling 12. One of the things that we learned was rolling 12 data, we think, is enormously valuable because people are so hung up on a calendar year. Well, I could care less about a calendar year. I mean, there's a 12-month accounting period that ends every month. And that's rolling 12 data, we think, is the truest indicator of the true momentum of your business. And so in our custom models, we're able to do forecasting. We haven't built the forecasting into our Simple Numbers tool yet, but it'll probably be something we'll do down the line. But we believe in that idea of not only looking back at what you have done, but now that you see the model, what are you going to do next? What's the actions that you're going to take? And how can I get to that targeted level of profitability? Because if I'm not profitable, I run out of oxygen. I'm going to cease to exist.
And Greg, is there some kind of overarching mission or vision of what you're trying to accomplish with your business over the next few to several years?
The overarching mission is to correct the wrongs and the pain and the frustration that the accounting profession has caused to the entrepreneurs of the world since the beginning of time. We miss the boat of what our purpose is, I believe, and so. I don't want to be a cost to somebody. I want to be a leveraged value, to someone. And I want my peers to do that. But I got too much work of dealing with entrepreneurs at the moment. And we've got a few accountants who've kind of bought into the idea of what we're looking at. But I just feel the passion to help all these entrepreneurs of the frustration and the services that accountants have charged them for that have added no value whatsoever. And if we can help that, I mean, you're going to expand the economy dramatically just by having profitable businesses that are producing valuable output rather than something that's just sitting there taking up, somebody's space in the marketplace.
It almost sounds like you're providing kind of outsourced CFO or CFO in a box sort of services. Is that a fair comment?
It is a fair comment. And what we found is we were producing this because most of those services that we do on the consulting side are built around either a monthly or a quarterly call with the client to review their data. And then in those conversations, we found a lot of times the client was missing a key element of their accounting structure that we've got a staff of outsourced accountants that will provide either a bookkeeper or accounting manager or even a controller level on an as-needed basis. Because one of the things that I tell people all the time when I do my talks around the book is, in reality, if you're a $5 million business, if I was really being efficient, I would need a CFO a couple hours a quarter. I need a controller a day a month. I need an accounting manager 1 day a week. And I need a good bookkeeper 1 day a week. Well, none of those are full-time positions because, and I'll tell you, the way I came to that idea is when I got hired by the bank back in 1983, after 30 days of fixing everything, I had a 2-day-a-month job. And I just couldn't fake it. I'm just too ADD to go, well, I just can't sit here and act like I couldn't expand the job into the time available. So I ended up getting involved and I managed the bond portfolio. And then when I got that all under control, then I ended up becoming VP of operations. And then I kind of had mostly a full-time job at that point, but I still had extra time. And it's this thing of looking at it going, our philosophy is the true element of profitability is productivity of labor. every dollar that you spend in labor has to produce a multiplier effect of gross margin. And that to us is the key of getting profitable. Well, you've got to be profitable to that or efficient to that point, whether it's management labor or either your direct labor. And so as we kind of work through those concepts, that became the aha moment of going, well, what services can we provide where people are overspending on a role in their business? Now, once you get over 10 million, you start to build a finance department that you'll probably have a controller and maybe an accounting manager. Some businesses are more data oriented than others, but it's that there's so many different ways to plug and play, that concept. And we see outsourced accounting to be, a tremendous opportunity because you get so much more value, of range of skill sets rather than trying to shove all of your accounting needs into one body. And there's just you're either overpaying or underserving for that.
Greg, do you market your services at all online? And if so, what percentage of your business comes from the work you do online versus things you do online or in-person networking, things like that?
Well, so the online has come largely, it started with writing the book. And this is kind of an unusual thing that I totally discounted the power of Amazon. I mean, although everybody kind of knows about it, but I wrote a book that got enough traction and activity that I started being picked up as, well, if you like this book, you would probably like this one. And it's amazing. I mean, I get a shipping order from Amazon every week of about 30 to 40 books a week. Now, I don't know who's buying them, but it's largely coming from people that see my book positioned around another book that somebody's buying in the business strategy and profitability, segment. And so that's one way of doing it. The other thing that has probably driven a good bit of our growth, outside of our local area is I'm in a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I've done a lot of speaking events at those. And then, so my online has been more so than people hear me speak, they come back to the book website, which is called simplenumbers.me. And so they find out more, and on the Simple Numbers site, they can either buy the book, and now they can download the QuickBooks or the Simple Numbers profit tool that interfaces with QuickBooks Online. And so more and more of our business going forward will probably be driven by people that may not have heard me speak, but it's amazing. I mean, we've seen just, the people that pick up on it on Twitter and Facebook and really just the reviews from Amazon, drives, some of those. So it's been an interesting process because, like I said, that's pretty much how we turned from being a local only business 11 years ago to 65% of our business is not local. We don't even market locally anymore. I mean, it's all of our growth is going to come from outside of Huntsville.
So if I am your neighbor, I'm your friend, and I say, Greg, you're a sharp guy. I've been watching what you're doing. I love your business. I love your thought process. I know you deal with entrepreneurs. I'm working for somebody else right now, and I want to start doing something entrepreneurial, whether it's online or offline or a combination. Just as a friend, are there any tips or advice you would give me as far as coming up with an idea for something to do entrepreneurially?
Yeah, I mean, typically to find the idea is, we would tell people is the easiest thing to do is look at something that's already being done but done poorly. So that's the easiest one and probably has the highest opportunity of success, because the hardest thing to do is what we call sell to the market. And it means I've got to market something. The market doesn't know what I have, and I've got to sell to market it first to then get it bought. Versus, hey, I just have to market something that people already know that, well, hey, I do a lawn service. Okay, well, people know what lawn service is. So I just got to be better than the next guy and be a good operator. And then, you're basically just doing, connection marketing then to generate enough activity and get up to a point of success. Typically the ones that I have to have that really hard conversation with is somebody's coming up with something that the market has never seen, wouldn't understand, and have to break the news to them I hope you have a lot of money to educate the market on what it is you're doing before you actually ever generate any sales. And that, I mean, it can happen, but you better come to it with big pockets. If you've got limited capitalization, a good example is we helped my nephew get set up in a car audio business, and the family did a capital raise to put him into business, and he basically was fully capitalized from the first day, and he's been after the first 3 months of opening expenses and people getting to know where he was at. He's been profitable ever since, because people know what a car audio shop does. He just has to be good at running one once he's got enough traffic and people see where it is. And we made the point to make sure that he was located on a very busy highway that just the signage alone, people would actually see where he's at. So those are the kind of things. But the other thing that we are also big on is creating models of forecasting. And so in a startup situation, you're trying to help somebody understand that, hey, you don't hit the ground running from the first day, and how big of a crater are you going to dig in terms of capital requirements before you're going to turn it around and start creating a profitable business that's going to return that equity that you put into it to start with, and then start harvesting profits off the business in that regard.
I want to make sure that our listeners that your last comment wasn't lost on them. So the whole concept of educating the marketplace, having to educate your marketplace, coming up with an idea of something that people don't know about, it's a new product, it's a new service, probably requires education, and education requires time and or money, both of which are oftentimes in short supply in the startup.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's, like I said, you either have to be very patient to build that momentum of people understanding what it is, blog about it, and being in a space where people are going to see it and take notice of it and understand what you're talking about. The product world, and that's kind of the other side. I would say also in the product world, people have a tendency to think, they have this idea of a product that's going to make them millions. Well, there's very few one product companies out there. If you're in a product oriented business, you better have a lot of products, or at least multiple lines of business, that product is going to make for you. And as you were talking about earlier with online businesses, there's been a dramatic reduction of margin available for online product sales, especially if you're selling commodity type goods. I mean, you're seeing a lot of online businesses try to survive on 15 to 20 points of gross margin of selling a product. That doesn't leave you, it give you a good example. I mean, the average brick and mortar retail store that's selling products has to make about 45 to 50% gross margin to be successful as a brick and mortar store, whereas online retailers, they're trying to target 25 to 30% margin a lot of times, but a lot of them are doing it on 15 to 20 because they've got some kind of feeder source, that's driving traffic. They're not having to spend inordinate amounts of marketing dollars to drive traffic.
So with that data point you just gave me, back to the example where I'm your friend and I'm asking you for kind of an idea, and I want to do something online. I want to do something primarily, if not solely online. Would you steer me more towards a service-oriented or information-based business online versus a product-selling business online?
I would definitely say so. I mean, I think from the only people I would steer to a product online service is you have to have kind of a unique market position of, I can source the goods better and make a higher margin than the average person. Otherwise, I got to play the volume game. We had a guy look at a business that they were going to buy that was selling just a discrete home consumer good, and the business they were looking at buying was making nice profit on $2 million of revenue, but I told them, I said, but the problem is they got $2 million worth of the stupid customers that just aren't paying attention to how much cheaper they can get that product. And I said, if you're going to take that $2 million worth of business and try to grow it to $20 million, you're going to destroy the $2 million that you just bought and overpaid for to get it, because that business is not priced to where the market leaders in that industry segment was, and that's the kind of the thing about online that you have to worry about. It's kind of good and bad. I can play it both ways in the sense that if I'm willing to have a niche, there's stupid customers on the internet that overpay for stuff all the time. And you just have to, it takes a little while to find them. And hopefully what you're trying to sell them is something that's kind of a repetitive sale. Now, if I got to keep finding them over and over again because it's just a one-off sale, that becomes a very difficult thing. So if you're in the product sales, you're trying to sell replenishable products, things that wear out and replace, and they're going to come back to me, over and over again. And once I get them as a loyal customer, they're not that price sensitive. But those price sensitive people are the smallest segment of the market. And versus when I'm doing, it's hard to compare the services model or information, because what's the comparison to it? And you just have to pitch those kind of business models in a way to say, hey, this is valuable information, and you can take it and you're going to pay me something for it, or I'm going to generate some revenue somehow, some way for it, and you're going to find it worthwhile, and you're going to hang around and keep subscribing, or if it's either a subscription model or just a pay for information model.
Greg, this has been a very informative conversation. What's the best way for our listeners to reach out and connect with you and find out more about your services?
The easiest way is go to the book and the Simple Numbers tool site called simplenumbers.me, and that's where they can certainly order a copy of the book. It's also available through Amazon, and it's available on Kindle as well. But the QuickBooks tool is there, and plus there's my all too infrequent blog that I don't write often enough. But there's some good examples of stuff that we've developed in intellectual thoughts. Since the original book that people will find useful using our concepts, and those are all available on the website. So that can certainly drive that. And then there's a contact form on that website that if they would like to inquire further about consulting services to help their business, happy to talk to them. And our goal, and there's a document that gives kind of the rough price ranges of what our regular services are. One of the things we try to do is price things on a fixed price basis rather than on an hourly for fee basis. And that way everybody kind of knows what they're getting into.
Well, all the great resources mentioned in today's episode will be available on the show notes page at theboomerbusinessowner.com. Greg, thanks so much. On behalf of all of our listeners, we really, really appreciate your help.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Charlie, and appreciate it. And I hope you have a happy and prosperous new year.
Thank you. Same to you.
Right.
Boomers, the time is now to take action and finally build your dream online business. And the great news is that Charlie is here to help. Visit theboomerbusinessowner.com and sign up for your free 15-minute consultation with Charlie to help you discover your first steps to starting your online business. Only those who take action are rewarded. So visit theboomerbusinessowner.com and we'll see you tomorrow.